Hey guys and girls, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live Tuesday night with Birchie. Lots of cool things to talk about. All right, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in to this week's live. Lots of things to talk about. Just a bit of a heads up before we get started. I'm out on the road still. I've been out on the road now for about 5 weeks. Heading back to Sydney at the moment, and I'm outside on a balcony, and I can see that there's all bugs flying around, right? I've got the ring light on, and I got my laptop here, and you're filming. So if you see some bugs flying past, you know what's going on. So that's what I've been up to tonight. I want to talk about obviously what's happening out there in the news. Lots of interesting things happening. Obviously today was rate day, which I want to talk to you guys about my thoughts, what I foresee happening, if anything's changed on my thoughts on the interest rates, and just what I've seen over the course of the last month, because I feel like we are in a once in a generation sort of wealth transfer, and people don't even realize what is in front of them, the opportunities that are ahead of them, and the fears and the things that people should be thinking of. And I've talked about it extensively, talked about the great prospects of a hyperinflation. I've talked about and we're seeing inflation, right? Everything's going up. They're saying that inflation hasn't gone up as much now, but we're seeing massive levels of inflation, and it will turn into hyperinflation. So let's get straight into it. So I've got a few news articles. I don't have the piece of paper with me at the moment. I actually realised that I can just look up the news articles on the computer instead of having them printed out and throwing them around. So that's one thing I've learnt in the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So looking at what is happening out there in the RBA. The RBA met today. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and the RBA has put interest rates on hold. It is second, third, fourth time that we've had them on hold for the last few months, and it just goes to show about where the economy is really at. And I would have thought, I actually said to all of you, if you remember, that we would start seeing interest rates and the monetary policy turn at the end of financial year, and we haven't seen any interest rate rises in this financial year. But I would have expected that we would have seen them fall by now. But it's obviously a sign of things to come, that they can't push the interest rates up anymore, and that's sort of where we're at. And if you go and look at the cash rates futures, those charts that I share with you guys all the time, you will see that the tail end is coming down from there, and we're starting to see pressures around the world. We're starting to see some big collapses of different sort of markets and financial systems, which is exciting, because that means that that's going to put downward pressure on the monetary policy, and they're going to have to change the course of action. But what comes with that, and what I think is very interesting, and the reason why I said beforehand that there is a once in a generation shift here that is occurring, the once in a generation shift is we have interest rate rises occurring right now as we speak. They've happened throughout the last 18 months, and we have seen the property market blow off top, right? They're trying to curb inflation and all that sort of stuff. But I said at the start, by them pushing up the interest rates, what that is doing is pushing that cost onto the end user, right? And it's causing all different buckles in the system. And we're at a point where interest rates are going up, but at the same time, the more the interest rates go up, the more that the rents are going up, meaning that the yields are improving, and it means that property prices are rising as well. And it's something that I've seen. I'm going to get into that after all my news articles today about what I have seen happening, because it is really exciting, interesting, and it's a bit annoying actually to me as well, what is actually happening out there in the marketplace. So I'll be sharing that later. So let's look at this other article here. It comes from the RBA on news.com. Challenging position. Can the RBA save Australia as the global economy tanks? That's the heading there. When the RBA heads down its decision on interest rates on the first Tuesday every month, excluding January, it's sometimes perceived as an all-powerful organisation handing down its judgment from on high from on high to the rest of us. I don't understand what that means, but it's saying it's perceived as all-powerful organisation. It's the one that controls, the system. It is the most powerful one. It's more powerful than your government out there. Given the power it holds, the financial fortunes of savers, mortgage holders, and other borrowers, it's understandable why some see it in this way. But does the RBA truly hold a level of power that it appears to? Can it transform the balance between the savers and borrowers on a whim? It's not even that, right? They don't even talk about the things that are most important. So it sounds like they're going from, the change of monetary policy. Look, we've had bad things happen. We're going to bring in this new chick. She's going to be the Lord's Saviour, and everyone's going to be happy with her, and all this sort of stuff. It's a softening blow, and they're, trying to play it down that we're not that powerful. We don't have that much control, and we're not, controlling these things. So the short answer is yes, but like many things in life, the full reality is quite a bit more complicated than it first appears. As Australia's central bank, the RBA can set interest rates at whatever level it believes necessary to pursue its mandate. Its mandate, just remember mandate, right? Yes. Someone just said here, hey mate, how you doing? The illness is back too. Exactly. We might all be locked down very shortly. Who knows what will happen there? That's an interesting one in itself. As Australia's central bank, the RBA mandate is defined as its duty to contribute to the stability of the currency, full employment, and the economic prosperity and welfare of Australian people. But in setting Australia's interest rates, the Reserve Bank needs to consider how international forces could impact the pursuit of its goals. For example, an overly strong Australian dollar stemming from significantly higher than developed world interest rates could be detrimental to the fortunes of Australian exporters. A strong dollar stemming from the mining boom and relatively high interest rates arguably played a role in the downfall of Australia's car industry, as higher costs made locally produced cars increasingly uncompetitive for the global market. At the other end of the spectrum, a weak Australian dollar is driven by having low interest rates relative to the benchmark in the US Feds, which risk importing inflation. So you basically, if our dollar goes down, if we don't push our interest rates up, which is why interest rates are being dragged up with the US dollar, means that the cost of importing everything will become more and more expensive, and meaning that we'll be getting more inflation just from currency conversion across the world. A historical perspective, over the past 35 years, the RBA has embarked on 5 major rate cut cycles where the cash rate was cut by 1.5% or more during a single cycle. In 3 out of the 5 cycles, the US Fed either cut its interest rate first or was known to be heavily favouring its cut at its next meeting. In 1990 and 2011, the RBA went alone and cut interest rates without being given the green light by the Federal Reserve acting first. However, it is worth noting the underlying conditions under which the RBA felt sufficiently secure to act on its own. Anyway, it just shows that they're tied together. The RBA cash rate minus the US federal funds rate, which if you have a look at the chart, which I don't have here, I'll post it in the Birch feed, it is way negative, right? It is way negative, and it's interesting to see certain things that are there. Petrol prices are almost record high over the course of the last 3 years, and then I think that will be here to continue for very much time longer than that. So it doesn't go in there to say in that article about why they decided to keep the rates low. But if you look at what is happening out there globally, we're starting to see collapses. I think I've got a double disaster to see China spiral into unknown territory, right? So when we go around the world and look at different countries and what is happening out there, this one here is an article talking about, goes on to say, the China's property boom disaster doesn't seem to be going away and is now beginning to spiral into unknown territory, right? Because it's all just a Ponzi scheme, remember? That's all just a Ponzi scheme. China's mum and dad investors, small businesses and employees are being cut loose as Beijing grapples with how to revive the nation's failing economy. They're being left to carry the bills left by the collapsing mega corporations, right? Because they were all Ponzi schemes to start off with. And if you look at it and go and look at what's happening with the Chinese interest rate and monetary policy, China is cutting its interest rates well, and they're going into a stimulative sort of environment. It goes on to say that property developers Evergrande and Country Garden owe suppliers, builders and contractors, blah, blah, blah. It just goes to show, right? So we've got China's market collapsing there. We go on to my next article. We go to see warning that issued that 75% of all ASX listed companies are at a risk of collapse, right? Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? Yeah, just seeing the comments coming through from you guys. I said beforehand that there would be a zombie companies which would blow up, right? And we've seen places like WeWork that have lost like 99% of their value. And if you go and look at your own super fund or look at the share market or whatever, Greg just said, let it sink, fuck it. Exactly, right? But they're all Ponzi schemes, right? So the bigger liquidity, whenever they inject liquidity in, make it a bigger Ponzi scheme, it just makes the problem bigger and bigger. And that is where we're at a point now, which we've just seen that they've tried to increase interest rates, right? The reality is that they've increased interest rates to 4%, which is really nothing, right? 4% is nothing. It's very fair and reasonable to have a 4% interest rate at the RBA. However, they couldn't even get it up to 4% in a year. They pushed it up to 4%, and now it's stalled, right? If they could restore confidence in our dollar and confidence in our currency, they'd be able to push that up much higher, which they obviously can't because now they've already stalled it, right? I believe personally that we're going to see, the next cycle of this being the reversal of the monetary policy they're doing today. When that will come, I said at the start of this year, I don't care in 2023 where they take interest rates to. The higher that they take the interest rates, the better. The higher that they take the interest rates, the more they're going to screw up the economy and the more that they're going to have to re-stimulate it on the other side. So here we are looking at, the articles that are coming out. Warning is issued that 75% of all ASX listed companies are at a risk of a collapse. Australian investors are facing a nightmare scenario where the more than 75% of all stock listed companies teeter on the brink of collapse. Experts are sounding the alarm over the large number of financially weak companies listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, as multiple have gone bust in the past year and more failures are expected to come. So this is just the start of that side of things, right? And this is just here in Australia. We haven't looked at the US and the UK and Canada and Russia and China and all these different markets that are out there. I said that we'd see a thing that was called zombie companies, and zombie companies were basically companies that were dead, but they were staying alive because of the stimulus and cheap credit environment. When we take away that cheap credit environment, we're going to see all these things implode. So this is fantastic. A lot of people think when I say these things that I'm being doomsayer, I'm negative or whatever. I think it's fantastic because it gives us the opportunity, to pick up stuff that's cheap, which everything's getting inflated away, right? But when they put more liquidity into the system and they fill the bucket up with the money that they've taken away from it, that's going to cause a hyperinflation, right? I always said, if you go back to my videos from the start of 2020, when I said that we wouldn't see a hyperinflation for 3-4 years, and then we would see the hyperinflation kick in. We haven't seen the hyperinflation yet, but we will see the hyperinflation, and it's right on the eve of that. So a lot of people out there are scared, and they're going, I'm going to wait and see what happens with interest rates and blah, blah, blah. I see you laugh when people worry about that stuff. The reality is that when they do start cutting, we've got things that are increasing stupid at the moment, right? If we look at my little trip that I've been on, I've observed that properties have gone up in some areas 25% in the last 6 months. And, when I look at that, I think to myself, okay, well, we haven't even seen, they're very cheap to start off with, right? How high could these things go? How much, could they crash this currency, right? A lot of people have got fixed interest rates, which were, 2.5% back in 2020, 22, 21, over the last few years, where interest rates were, 2%, 3%. What happens when the rates come down crashing further than what they were beforehand? And you can get interest rates of 1% or 1.5%. A mortgage that is $2 million at a 2% interest rate is only $40K a year, $800 a week. It's cheaper than what most people are paying for a rental property right now. So very interesting concept that we're going to be seeing when they do choose to turn monetary policy in the opposite direction, because it will cause the hyperinflation. So just be aware that, as I say, if there was a generational way of changing hands of wealth, this next few years will be it. Money will go from weak hands into strong hands, and it's important to be able to observe where the flows of currency will go. So, looking at the stock market, interesting. I haven't even looked at the stock market. I haven't been looking at crypto markets. I haven't been looking at other sort of markets of recent times because I've been too busy doing what I do in the real world. But I see that there's good buying out there, right? Just And we're seeing all these things get inflated away. But find the pain points, right? If you're a business owner, go and find opportunities to buy business, right? Today I had some orders cancelled. I'd ordered out some deep fryers and different sort of bits of equipment to restaurants that I've got. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, in Sydney, I can buy restaurants that have gone bust and I can buy all their equipment for $5,000 and it's probably $100,000 fit out or $200,000 fit out, right? So getting all that equipment, you can go to the shop and buy it, which is going up and up and up because the cost of the metal, the cost of this, cost of that, cost of the next thing. Or there's someone that's got the whole fit out there that you can go pick up second hand because there's not a market for that at the moment. So it's finding those little cracks in the market, finding the opportunities to be able to capitalise upon. You can be sitting there trying to buy stocks or shares in an overinflated, uncontrolled Ponzi scheme. It's not my game. It's not my game. I have been very big on shares beforehand, but I'm just not in the current market. Another article here that Warren Buffett is selling $8 billion worth of stock. Here or there. There we go. See how we go. The thing that I realised over the last few weeks, right, and I might actually pull my conversation about what I want to talk about, the main part today, into my news articles that I'm sharing here. One thing I realised, I've never ever seen this beforehand. I'm scared of, what are we looking at here? There we go. There we go. Look, as Jasper just said, millions of Australians have received welfare payment boost. How much pensions, job seeker, Austudy will increase this month, fueling the fire. Thank you, government. Exactly. They just keep finding new ways that they can inflate this Ponzi scheme bubble. The big problem that all the governments have got around the world at the moment is because interest rates have gone up, the cost of money has gone up. As they're having to roll over their debt, the debt is incurring interest at like 40 times more than what the interest bill used to be. So people are upset because their mortgage has doubled from 3% to 6% or 3.5% to 7% or whatever the case may be. But they're not realising that the government's debt that was at 10 basis points or 1% or whatever is now gone to 4% or 5%, and that's a very, very big significant jump. So that's why a lot of the governments around the world are pushing for taxes and whatever revenue they can try and squeeze out of the population at the moment. So one thing that I saw, this is very, very big, and I've never seen this happen. I'm scared of aeroplanes. Put me into lots of debt, put me into lots of commitments and stuff in life. I'm perfectly fine with that. But put me on an aeroplane, I don't like it. I choose not to fly. So I drive around a lot of places. So I've travelled around our country so many times, right? So many times. I know the roads when I see them. You can actually hear the aeroplanes going over me at the moment, right? I'm near an airport where I am right now. Got a beach there, an airport there. So one thing I'd realised that I've never ever seen beforehand, doesn't matter if it's a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, Thursday, lunchtime, night time, morning time, wherever the case may be, the amount of cars that are travelling, right? It doesn't matter if you're talking coming out of Sydney to go to the Central Coast, to Newcastle, to the Mid-North Coast, to the Gold Coast, to Brisbane, to Sunshine Coast, to Rockhampton, to Mackay, to Whitsundays, to Townsville, all those places that you keep driving up the coastline. I've never seen so many vehicles on the road. Equally, the amount of caravans that I've seen on the road, right? The amount of caravans, I should have been buying caravan parks, right? Because there are so many caravans out there. I calculated in multiple times driving down the freeway, driving 10 kilometres. I'm not talking about a built-up area, right? Driving 10 kilometres and seeing 10 to 15 caravans come past me with a Toyota Land Cruiser, some sort of big car towing a big caravan. So there's people out and about in our country. Someone just said here, fancy some man-made mosquitoes flying down on us. There's a lot of mosquitoes flying around this ring light at the moment. But yeah, looking at the state of the world that we have, looking at the state of how we're living our lives, right? Looking at the state of, this work from home, right? Everyone's working from home and they're on the road traveling. They're going, oh yeah, boss, I'm doing right. Oh, I'm just, doing some emails in my Zoom call. If I can drive down the Bruce Highway through Queensland, right? The nature of how we do business and conduct has changed a lot. So, which kind of takes me to a couple of comments that I've seen here. A couple of people have been commenting to me that around the world, it's apparently flu season again. Everyone should get their little shots and keep up to date. But what is happening with the lifestyle? What is happening with people's lives? So, we've got people wanting to flee out of their countries, people reassessing how they want their life. I've seen so many beach town suburbs, right? I've been along the coastline, hunting the coastline all the way through, and the amount of people that are staying in these beach-tide towns, the lack of stock that's available out there in any regional place. Doesn't matter if you're inland in some mining town, doesn't matter if you're in some fruit town or some farming town. These locations have filled in a lot, right? I've been throughout all these locations many a times, to the point where there was one day I went 6 hours, I couldn't even find a motel to stay at, just because there was nothing available. So, people are out there, people are traveling, people are moving, people are changing their life. I'm seeing, so I've got this article here, which I didn't have my list to talk about today, but this is an article from the ABC, and it says, Queensland coastal regions from Noosa to the Gold Coast are set to grow by 600,000 population. How will they cope, right? And the one thing I've seen on the Gold Coast and all the way through to, say, the Sunshine Coast is that that's like Parramatta Road in Sydney at the moment, right? Like, there's too many people that are going there, right? It's going to keep going, right? But the prices, stuff that I used to pick up for 200 grand is now selling for 600 grand, 700 grand. Stupid, right? You wouldn't buy it. But then what does that mean for other locations, right? And I always said that when people realize they can go up the road a little bit further, down the road a little bit further, and buy a property for half that price, that's when the light switch moment would change. So, and I'm not saying a specific suburb, right? This is just a part of this news article. It says here, I think we're approved for 370,000. This is like a quote from a lady here in this article. I think we're approved for 370,000, but we won't get anywhere on the Sunshine Coast. So we're moving to Mackay, right? So it's at that point when, and this is the whole part about having a recession-proof property portfolio, is that when people can't afford to buy a Ferrari or a Lambo, they're going to be buying up all the Toyota Camrys and Ford Falcons and Hyundais and whatnot. So, everyone's looking at these locations going, oh, I should buy this area. It's had growth and growth and growth. It's like, no, hang on a second. There's so many opportunities out there where people haven't even realised yet. Well, they have realised, right? That's the thing I've realised, is that the market has switched on. I was just fortunate enough that I was in many of these locations, or in all of the locations, 2 years before those markets even got a look into. So, yeah, I'm seeing that if we were to go back even just 2 months ago, stuff I was picking up in a lot of these places at like 180,000, 200,000, and now 250, 270, 300,000. And that's a big fucking jump percentage-wise in such a short period of time. So just goes to look at, how is the life changing after, a said illness has occurred and people have been trying to get the wings to, have freedom in life and, wrangle their boss to go, I'm going to work from home, I'm going to do this, etc., etc. Pete just said here, not much in Mackay for 350 to 400. Look, it's all around the country, right? It doesn't matter which corner of the state or which corner of the country you're looking at. All of the cheapy stock is disappearing. It's disappearing dramatically. So just having a look here, the next article that I wanted to share with you all was another one here that says Ponzi scheme, while the 2023 intergenerational report sets Australia on a path to ruin. Australia is hurtling down a dangerous path, with one expert warning how we now face a congested, high-rise future in a degraded environment. In 2001, when Australia's population was 19.3 million, right? That was only 20 years ago. The then Treasurer, Peter Costello, released an inaugural intergenerational report. The IGR forecast that Australia's population would grow to 25.7 million people by 2050, driven by a net overseas migration of 90,000 people per year, right? So when you think of that and you overlay that to the market, right, we now have like 26 million people. I don't even know how many people we've got. I remember when we hit like 20 million people, it was like a massive thing in the early 2000s. But here we now are, it's just like, oh, here's another 20% more people. So over the course of this year and next year, Australia is set to have 750,000 people in an 18-month period, right? Where are they going, right? What are they buying? Where are they moving to, right? Are they moving into the cities? Who's going to build the properties? Better yet, how much are these properties going to cost to construct because of, inflation, right? I've got an ad here on my screen for tiles, right? Some really nice pink ones there that I'm going to buy for the front of the Proserpine Motel. And it's just an ad. It's reading my clicks on the computer, so it's trying to show me what I should buy. But you look at tiles, right? I buy lots of tiles. I've done over 100 bathroom renovations last year. And when I look at the cost of the tiles and the labour and all that sort of stuff, they're going up at a massive rate. So when you look at the future, right, how much is it going to cost to build a house for 750,000 people in the next 2 years, right? So if you can't build them, it means that that's going to put more pressure on the stock that's already there, right? These people are going to have more people in their households. They're going to have to cut down on certain things. So their quality of life is going to be going backwards and not forwards. But it just is interesting that when Costello set this inaugural intergenerational report in 2001, which is 22 years ago, that he predicted over 50 years that would see 90,000 people come to the country. But we're getting 750,000, right? Where are they going to go? We can't build the places. It's going to put pressure out there, right? It says here what Howard government did to get through the GFC. In response, the Howard government progressively increased the permanent migrant intake from 93,000 to 150,000 in 2007, right? Our debts are so high. Our debt is so high as a nation. We can't pay it. As a country, we will go bankrupt, right? We need more tax slaves to pay taxes to service that debt, just to service the debt. We can't breed quick enough. So anyway, we can get more tax slaves. We can't breed quick enough. We're going to have to bring them in via migration. So just interesting to see that, we're double. Like if we're at 750 in 18 months, let's say we're at 350, 400,000 people a year. That's double or triple what the Howard government did after they doubled the decade prior. It was doubling. Everyone thinks your house price doubles every decade, but what about the immigration inflation, right? That's inflating away. There you go. There's something for someone to talk about in the political place. The immigration inflation. Great it is. I'm laughing because it's sad when I read you the next articles, right? But I'm laughing because it's fantastic, right? 20 years ago, 15 years ago, people laughed. They go, "Oh, Birch, you're going to go broke. Why do you need more than one house for? Don't buy those shit boxes, blah, blah, blah." I'm laughing now because I took all the sacrifice, took all the commitment that I had to do. And I'm seeing the fruits of it, right? Because I foresaw what the future would have. And I made action today, or the 10 years ago, 20-year-old version of me. I took action in line to get there. And, there's so many things that are happening right now that are once in a generation, right? Once in a generation, which is really amazing. So, yeah, migrants, come on in, right? We're open for business. There's migrants that are coming in, skilled migrants going to so many different regions, right? Those regional areas are going to get full of migrants, right? It's kind of insane and crazy. And I think that it will stem off, right? If we want to go down some rabbit holes, right? I've seen a couple of people saying about the illness and potential lockdowns, right? Whether it's illness lockdowns, whether it's climate lockdowns, we've seen people having to paint their roofs blue for certain things. There's climate things that are happening out there. We don't want to go too far into it, right? Because we'll get shadow banned. But there's, is there going to be a climate lockdown? Is there going to be a need for humanitarian efforts to fix us up because natural catastrophes that will be occurring via different type of energy sources that could affect us, whatever. I forget where I was going with this. I think that if we bring so many migrants in and we fill up our regions to a point which is going to pop, then that's going to expedite the need for us to put things like high-speed rail in and make smart cities, right? And that's what they want, right? Is smart cities, and being able to, have little satellite cities and little compound areas where you can't travel out, right? Everyone's going to have their little Tesla, right? And they're going to think, I'm doing Elon Musk, great, I'm saving energy, right? Not looking at what cobalt comes from or anything like that. Let's leave that on the side. And then suddenly you've been a bad boy. You've said the wrong thing on the internet, right? You haven't, complied by getting an update to yourself or whatever. Now you can't drive more than 15 minutes out of your city. You can't leave your compound, right? And that's, is that where we're heading to? It's definitely the precursor to these sorts of things. And sometimes they sound crazy, and, the crazy things in 5 years sound very reasonable and sensible. So a crazy thing that I said in 2017 to you all, if you have been following me since back in 2017, I said that we would end up losing our currency, right? You've seen all these countries lose their, big corporations and all that sort of stuff, but we will lose our currency. And we're at a point now. I just shared a couple of hours ago onto Birchfeed a video which was talking about Coles in Brisbane, right? Coles has now gone cashless, right? So you can't use cash, right? Legal tender is illegal to use, right? In these shops, right? So it just goes to see, right? Like if you were a business and you were third line forcing someone, remember that word third line forcing means that we will allow you to do something only if you use this or that or the next thing. The reality of it is that that's highly illegal, and you can't third line force someone to do something. But as a country we are in and a world that we're in, they're third line forcing us and saying if you want to participate, you must use your digital currency. You can't use cash, right? Which is kind of ironic in itself. So, I don't want to go too far into these sort of things. We'll keep on topic. This one here is a fun one, right? I've been doing, like yesterday I did a news article for news.com. My friends over at news.com and Telegraph and, all the news.com sites and their publications. I did some articles and talking about some stuff. I think there's an article coming out tomorrow that I've contributed to. However, I can't bring myself to going to mainstream media as far as TV and all that. I used to go on TV all the time. Used to be mainstream media dude, whatever. And every time they get you in, they get you to like a think tank, right? And they'd be like, "Tell me." I'd walk into things, right, like from ABC News. And you can see the videos; they're online, and they're like they sell it to you like, "Oh, do you want to come and talk to us about how you've been successful with property, right?" And then you go into behind the scenes, and they've had young Labor Party people, right? And I'm politically atheist, right? But they're all there scripted with certain things, and it becomes, instead of me being able to give advice and guidance to people on how to get ahead, it's an attack by saying you're a rich person, you use negative gearing and all this stuff. Like you're a bunch of idiots, you don't know how it works, right? You're all just puppets that are there. So when they come out and they say, it's because of smashed avocado and because of Gen Y or whatever we are now, Z or whatever, Gen Z, that are having smashed avocado and their life is so good with Netflix and all this sort of stuff. They make out that it's certain things, of course, that happen. It's because of baby boomers, right? How dare your parents and grandparents, whatever, work hard, pay lots of taxes, get robbed from the state for their whole working life for 40 years, and then have a little bit of something. They own their own house and they're somehow a terrorist, right? They're a terrorist, right? Just because your parents worked hard, right? That's communism within itself, right? So I look at these things and I can't take any of it serious, right? So I see here's an article here on 9 News, and it says here a think tank blames the rental crisis on the record of international student numbers, right? They're trying to say it's, forgive me for highlighting it, right? They blame people, right? Let's see, I'm not going to go there because someone could hold me as being racist, and I'm probably the only white person about of all my friends, so I'm definitely not that. But they'll say that it's from overseas, here we go, ballooning overseas student numbers are behind the skyrocketing rental increases. Or up to $1,000 a year and adding to the scarcity of housing stock, a think tank has claimed. According to the Institute of Public Affairs, right? That's a think tank, right? Just think about these. These are these lobbyist groups they pull in with so-called experts, right? According to the Institute of Public Affairs, the IPA. So someone reading this, like just, I'm watching the news, right? That's what people do, and they believe everything they see without questioning, with blind faith. They look at this and go, oh yeah, some told me this, right? Let's give me some more, fluoridated water, whatever, right? I'm not here to bag people out, right? But they're saying, who is the Institute of Public Affairs, and what fucking credibility does the Institute of Public Affairs, right? Public affairs is public relations, it's like a voice of something, right? The Federal's move to cash in one of the $40 billion international student industry has led to a hike in average rental prices. How dare you, students coming out, bringing all your money to this country, right? Because we need to pay our debt, right? So you've got all these like commie backdoor lobbyist groups for all your left-wing, right-wing government trying to blame, it's the Asians that are coming in and taking our land. It's this or that or the next thing, right? It's absolutely disgusting, right? It's absolutely disgusting that they are blaming these sorts of things, right? But this is your Channel 9 News, and then it puts divide in, and it's like, oh, it's because these guys are coming in and taking our jobs and doing this. It's like, we need migration, right? Why are we migrating people? Because we've robbed and we've mismanaged our economy for way too long, and that's why we're in $1 trillion worth of debt. Every state is in over $100 billion worth of debt, and we simply can't pay our interest bill. And, if we don't keep bringing migrants in, we won't have enough taxpayers. Society goes around, right? I bet you if I read through this, right, it goes here, in the past year, rents increased by 4.4% on average, the equivalent of about $24 per week, right? If you're a renter, drop us a comment in the comment section here. How much has your rent gone up by? Has it gone up by $24 per week, right? I know the rents have gone up. I'm a part of that, right? I see the opportunity on behalf of my landlords out there. I increase rents $50 on a $200 a week property. I increase $100 on a $300 per week property. Those rents are going straight through, out there. So there's a lot more rent increases than $24 a week. I don't know anyone that's got a $24 per week rent increase, right? Don't know who has got a $24 per week rent increase, because we've all gone up much greater than that. And let me tell you, it's not because we've got international students coming through. It's not because of that. So don't point the finger there. It's because we've got cheap interest rates, and they still are relatively cheap. So everyone's now got a holiday house now, right? How many of you guys that are watching this don't have a secondary house or something like that, right? How many people can't afford to build a new house now, right? Because inflation has gone up so high. This takes me on to some other, I'm going to read through some of the articles, but I want to share with you some really interesting things that I've seen, right? Like, I got an ad the other day. I just told you about my ads that have on the side of my screen here about tiles, right? I got an ad the other day for, what was my ad for? I had duplexes, right? Duplexes. There's a builder in Sydney, and they're like if you had a scale of 1 to 10 of the builders, they weren't 1, they're probably like a 3, right? They're not even like, they're just an average sort of builder. Like, they're not a big one, they're not a little one, but they're cheap, right? If you knew that they were cheap, you'd be like, this builder's pretty cheap, right? And I was gobsmacked because it was like one of those Google ads, and it just popped up in the middle of my Facebook or whatever, and it said duplex, right? And I actually know this because I designed the duplex, right? I designed that duplex that they copied, right? I designed a duplex for a builder, and then this other building company miraculously came up with this duplex, which is almost identical in design. And it's a very small duplex, right? It just fits in 4 bedrooms and a lounge room. It doesn't even have 2 lounge rooms, just has 1 lounge room. It's a basic duplex, right? And here's a little game for us all to play, right? How much do you think a duplex would cost to build in 2023? How much do you think? For a pair, right? Back in the day, well, I was being able to get for my clients, getting the builders to build them for $450,000, $500,000, $600,000, right? It was like $600,000 expensive. Matty said $800,000. Wrong, right? I'm talking about a really basic, right? Really basic duplex. $1,050,000. $1,050,000 to build a duplex, right? 900,000, no, $1,050,000 to build a duplex, the pair of them. And I'm like, how the fuck can anyone make money out of that, right? Who's going to make money out of buying a block of land for $1 million, building a duplex for $1 million, holding costs, all that? It has to be $2 million to make a bit of money on it. Carrying the risk, $1,050,000, right? To build a duplex pair. Crazy, right? But why? Why is it that? Because, as I said by my other ads that had the tiles there, the tiles have gone up from $20 to like $60. The copper pipe has gone up because the commodities have gone up in value. The one thing that we have here as a nation, which is very important to acknowledge and understand, is that we have shit in the ground that is very valuable to the rest of the world, and we are the slaves to pull that out so the rest of the world can get their cars, right? So the rest of the world can get their TVs and all that sort of stuff that they require. So, I look at every part of the economy, right? It's like, well, that's good value over there. That is good value there. That is good value there. But not everything is good value. So, why has rent gone up? Well, it's not because, it could be 5% because we've got students migrating to the country, right? But in your neighborhood, do you have an influx of students that you go like I've got flies and moths and stuff here, right? I can't see the stream a bit here, right? Because there's things flying all past me, right? I don't feel overcrowded where I live because there's students, right? Is your area crowded because of students? And if not, well, then that mustn't be what's causing it, right? What's causing the rents to go up is because they've pushed the interest rates up. I don't see in this article they're blaming international students for rents increasing by $40, right? Your rents have gone up a shitload more than that. I saw someone there saying beforehand that rents have gone up by $700 per month for that person. That's nearly $200 a week, $150 a week. Your interest rates have gone up, right? People have pushed that on, right? So that was generated from the RBA, right? Inflation, because they printed too much money, has caused all the shit to build a house to go up so high that it now costs $1,050,000 for the cheapest shittos, povo type of duplex to be built out there in the marketplace. So who would want to be building those things? Not many people are, right? So you've got to bring in those more people. However, all these other pressures that are there to support it. So where can you find the value? That is the key. That once you understand that, once you can see past all the other noise that's out there, then you crystal clearly see the opportunities. It's like bang, bang, bang. It's like all this is just junk, but bang, bang, bang. And that's where the opportunities lay. So, before we sit there and, yell at the TV about stop bringing migrants in, the students and all that sort of stuff, A, they're paying the debt that your nation racked up for you and robbed you from. B, right, we need more people here to pay taxes to service the debt. Otherwise, your ass would be bankrupt, right? Because your country would go bankrupt. And then you have worse problems, right? So there's a very big instability there, right? And this is what's changed nations over the years. It's the fall of empires when manipulation causes breaking points. At some point, someone's going to say, I've had enough, I don't want to deal with this shit. People get together, bang, and there's a change in something. But it ain't going to happen now because everyone's, too many weak people around. That's the problem, right? No one's going to stand up for it. Here's an article here, right? This is from 4 hours ago on Domain, right? These are the articles that are coming out. And this is the opportunity, right? It's the opportunity. Rents have been pushing up those rents, right? So many of my investors, I've got a smile on my face all the time. I talk to you about negative stuff, talk to you about doom and gloom and all that, but it's like, how do you fucking take advantage of this? Because there's so many people taking advantage out there in the world, and you'll be sitting there going, shit, I'm constantly getting the shit taken advantage from me, right? But the opportunity is that you can take advantage of everything that's out there that's happening, because if they didn't play this game, you wouldn't have a table to sit at to play the game. So I'm happy because my rents have gone up. I'm happy because all of my investors' rents have gone up, and I'm seeing all that. And, you know, do I get impacted? Yes, I do, right? When I go and buy my dinner, when I go and buy my food. This little bottle, right? I get impacted, right? This here, it's a ginger beer, right? I'm going to have a little sip of it, right? It's an organic ginger beer. To buy mince to cook your food, right? You want to cook spaghetti, right? You have to get good mince. Good mince would cost you, $20 a kilo. It's not going to cost you 2 kilos for $10 or whatever that the supermarket sell you, because it's such poor quality. If you want to have the same quality that you used to have, you have to spend a lot more. These drinks, I think these are like $6 a bottle or something, right? It's more than your beer, right? It's more than people pay for their beer. So looking at the cost of living, right? Everybody's impacted with inflation, right? I go to the shops, costs go up. I have my staff, wages go up. I have my food and beverages that I sell in different locations, they go up. I have the cost of power that goes up by 25%, like everyone else's does. So it does impact, right? But I can far outstrip that by being ahead of it and participating, because that game's going on, right? And that's where the generational change of wealth is happening, right? Because people will be like, oh, I'm scared, or whatever the case is. Like, oh, that's great. How about we have a discussion and I can help you out with your problem, because you're trying to get rid of something, and I'm really excited to help you out with that, because inflation is a really good thing for a lot of people. Here's an article. Rick can't find a rental near work, so he's commuting 6 hours a day. That's pretty fucked up, right? It's pretty messed up, right? If I was Rick, I wouldn't be commuting 6 hours a day for a job, right? If I was Rick, I'd be thinking, how can I participate in this situation in the game? I may not be able to afford my house where I live, right? And so if I was Rick, I'd be like, okay, I can't afford $1 million property and I can't afford the rent that's going on. How about I buy a property out in a different location for $200,000? And when that rent goes up by $100, well, then my rent's gone up by $100, and I've got 5 rental properties, and they've all gone up by $100, so I'm getting extra $500 a week, right? Yeah, I'm hurting because my rent's gone from $600 to $700 a week. I'm losing $100, but all my tenants' rents have gone up from $300 to $400 a week, and I'm getting $500 a week extra. Now 70% of my rent is covered because my tenants are paying for that, right? It's about having a strategy, about having a plan. This is where people look at things so two-dimensionally, and then I'm looking at it multi-dimensional. So Rick is here complaining in his article. He's so upset. He's contacted Domain, and he's like, oh, God, I've applied for 50 rental properties in Melbourne and has been rejected from all of them, right? That's not because Rick's a bad bloke. I don't even know who the guy is. He looks like a nice guy here. Because after forced to leave his Carnegie rental late last year, the 50-year-old moved in with family in Gippsland and commutes about 6 hours a day to his job in professional administration in Melbourne's inner east. He's considering offering 6 months rent in advance to secure a home closer to work, etc., etc. Don't want to read his sob story, right? It's pretty bad out there. It's grim out there for a lot of people. I'm not trying to be a dick on this sort of front. But there's things that you can do. It is tough out there. I see it just in our business, right? I was out. A lot of people don't realise I bought and I buy lots of real estate agencies out there, right? And there's real estate offices out there. They're just in random locations. And I went into one the other day, right? And it's not Blink. It's just local real estate offices as well. And I went to this real estate office and I sat there and I was talking to them. I was like, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah. And they said to me, Nathan, we have asked like, what's happening in the market. You tell me about it, because I'm not involved in any capacity. I just own the thing, right? And they go, we don't have any rental properties available, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we don't have any rentals. There's none available. We're 100% occupancy in this location. And I I said, oh, okay, well, what are we doing about it? It's like, oh, we've got to go to put some ads out at that location to get all the rental properties. They showed me a pile, right? And they use paper applications, and they've got a tray full of applicants that have been approved for rentals, right? So it doesn't matter if Rick's in his Melbourne city sort of location, or if you're in a different state or a different location or a smaller place, bigger place. It is tough out there in every location. So wouldn't you be sitting there going, I can't afford the rent at the moment. What could I do? Could I participate in it? Most people are like, I can't afford to do that. Rick is 50 years old. I'm just making up, right, a story here in a scenario. I don't know Rick at all. I'm just making it up, right? But let's assume that Rick's 50 years old, because that's what it says here. If he's been working for 30 years, he'd have super, right, of 30 years at 50 grand income. Right? That'd be $5,000 a year that his boss would have had to put in. That'd mean he's got 150 to 200 grand in his super. Rick could buy 2 or 3 properties in his super and be able to have a good life, right? Because those properties would be, paying himself off. Obviously not giving any financial advice here. But there's things that if you're sitting there going, shit, life's tough, there's opportunities, right? Because this has created an opportunity, right? If these greedy investors are making money, we'll go and play the game with the greedy investors, right? I can't afford to buy $1 million property. Well, no one said to buy $1 million property. I was buying shit boxes in Mount Druitt, getting chased out the street because I wasn't a local and I wasn't rough, right? I wasn't, I didn't fit in there, right? Grew up on the other side of the train tracks, right? So with it, it doesn't mean that you have to go buy the house that you live in for starters, right? It could just be, buying a rental property or whatever. But it just makes me think, like, what can people do? There's people, like, if you're a tenant, and I said this once beforehand, and a couple of you guys caught on to it and actually went and did this. If I was a tenant right now renting a property, and I was sitting here going, fuck, I can't secure a rental, things are going to get a lot worse, and inflation's going to get a lot worse, meaning that my rent's going to go up a lot more. In the next 3 to 5 years, I really want to be doing a deal. I'll be sitting there thinking, if my owner of the property is thinking of selling the property soon and scared of interest rates going up and all that sort of stuff, how about the proposal of saying, hey, I'll pay an extra $50 a week rent, so instead of getting $600, you're getting $650, and we lock it in for 5 years, getting a long lease there, and then being cheeky and throwing in there that you could get an option to buy the property at a fixed price, or you'll go and buy the property at a fixed price, but you'll settle on it in 5 years, right? That means that you've set yourself a position of 5 years. You've got to come up with the fact that you're going to be buying that property. You've locked in your rent for the next 5 years. You've tied the owner of your property, the greedy landlord, that's so, oh yeah, I'll sell you the property. I'll make a good profit out of it, right? You've secured your position by moving your chess piece across the chessboard, right? How many people are doing that? Just the thought of the day. Opportunities are out there, right? People are scared, right? Why go and spend 100 grand on kitchen equipment when I can get it for 5 grand or 2 grand because someone's gone broke and they don't have anyone to sell it to because all the other places are going broke around them, right? It's finding those opportunities. This is sad, and I have seen this, right? Like, I was on the Gold Coast the other week. I'm not too far from the Gold Coast at the moment. You hear the waves crashing in. Much nicer where I'm at the moment than the Gold Coast. It's not as crowded and busy. I used to love the Gold Coast so much, but it's just very crowded for me nowadays. I think I've gone between a phase of being eccentric to introvert, but not extrovert to introvert, right? That's a lot of people there. One thing I noticed on the Gold Coast the other day is that there is so many, I was in the Gold Coast yesterday, and there is so many homeless people. There is so many homeless people. I've never seen it that bad beforehand, right? But at the same time, I saw rents at $300 a week beforehand that are now at $700 a week, right? They've gone up 100, 120, 150%. I apologize for my partaking in it, right? But I ain't the cause of this, right? There's so many homeless people out there, and it's how can we sort of help them out? Always look at how can we help these people out to improve themselves, to better themselves, and whatnot. So it says here, this article, which is from The Guardian, more than 1,600 Australians are pushed into homelessness each month as housing crisis deepens, right? So what is the country doing about that? What are we doing, right? What is the nation that we're doing? I think talking about it, education. People say you shouldn't talk about religion or money or politics at the dinner table, right? if I'm sitting at the dinner table, I want to talk about all those things. I want to throw all things in there you shouldn't be talking about, right? Because if you're a parent with a kid, right? If you're the kid and you've got the parents, right? Your parents have some thoughts, your parents have some things, right? It doesn't matter if your parents are successful or if they're not successful, right? The thing is that if they're not successful, then you can listen and think, why are they not successful and what sort of things have they thought, and do the opposite of that. If they are successful, what things can you gain from that? If you're successful and you've got children, what things could you put on your kids? But you shouldn't be talking about these things, but you should be, they say you shouldn't be talking about it, but I think it's important to discuss it, because ignoring it is what causes the problem, right? And they're just, it's because of this, because of that, the next thing. It needs to be discussed. Do I have the answers for it? I've got lots of ideas on how you could, but I ain't the ones that are in power, right? So we can only take care of what we can. And I represent lots of people with what I do in my businesses. I help out investors. Investors provide affordable accommodation for people. There's lots of grants that the government give people for being able to house themselves, rent assistance and stuff like that. Someone can rent something for $300 a week. The government probably gives them $250 of that. As a benefit to be able to not be homeless. There's things out there to be had. It's just, finding how we can help. But, a lot of people go, it's all too hard, I'll just go live in a tent under a bridge and whatever. And I'm telling you, I'm seeing tents under bridges, right? I was in Broadbeach the other day, right? You've got the casino, you've got all this wealth, everyone's going in there, flashy lights, all that disgusting sort of place. But, it's $1 million everywhere there, right? $1 million gets you nothing, right? A few $1 million gets you a half-decent house. You've now got, in those locations, right, like multi-million-dollar neighborhoods, homeless people, unshaved people, tattoos, swag, no shower, no toilet, living in that area in the streets, right? It is a problem. But this has happened at the fall of civilizations. This has happened, in any sort of country when we have high inflation. The high inflation kills people. I talk about the fun part of the hyperinflation is if you're set up, you're going to take advantage of it. But if you're not set up, you're going to fall victim to it. So make sure you set yourself up. Food, water, as Lynette Zhang would say, energy, shelter, all these things you need to, have yourself protected with having access to these things, right? If inflation gets so high, people, have you noticed that in Woolworths and Coles, right, they have those big metal trolleys? You used to get a big metal trolley, right? Who's noticed that the trolleys have gone up and they're only like half height? They're not like this deep. They're like little tiny trolleys, right? They're just like a platform. You walk around a platform, like you walk around a shelf, right? You can't even fill up a shopping trolley anymore, right? You'd have to mortgage your house. You'd have 2 weeks' wage to go and fill up your shopping trolley, right? You just can't fill it up. And the things you put in there, 95% of the stuff is going to kill you with bad, poor quality chemicals in there, in your food, right? So when you look at it, it's like inflation is taking all of our lives, right? Bad, turning our lives bad. But the opportunity is to pick up things that are cheap, pick up things that have got cash flows that get inflated away, pick up things that are below building. I don't mean just sorry, it's a freaking aeroplane over the top of me again. Imagine living in this location, just planes all day and night. Finding things, doesn't matter if it's a car, right? You can't build a car, right? If you look at a car, I remember as a kid, you drive down the street and you'd see cars on every corner with a real estate agents for sale sign, cut the sign off and you just have for sale and people stick on the window wipers. If you live in the 90s, you'd remember those days, right? Before the internet, before you put it on Facebook Marketplace, you'd have to go and put it on the side of the road, put a sign on the window and whatever. And for sale. And those cars would be like $100, $200, $300, whatever. How many people do you know that bought a Datsun or a Kingswood for like $200, $300? They're every day, everywhere, dime a dozen. But now, like the cost, everyone goes, the Datsun's gone up with, Corona tax or whatever the case they want to believe in, right? And it's like, well, that's one part. But secondly, is everyone's got cheap cash, everyone's got lots of equity because everything's getting inflated away, they can instantly get more debt, right? Everyone's just getting hooked onto more cheap credit and debt, right? And it's the way the system works, right? I didn't set it up, I didn't create it, I just participated in it because it's the opportunity, right? Otherwise we'd all be living under the bridge in our swags. So it's looking at it and going, okay, a car, the metal inside a car to build a car costs $3,000 just in raw metal. That's to pull it out of the ground. It's scrap value, right? Metal in the car costs about $3,000. You got your copper in your wiring loom, all your electrics through your car, your engine block, your catalytic converter with palladium in it. All these things cost to build. So if you can find stuff that costs below rebuild of anything, well, that's some value. If you can hook it up with debt, well, then you can pay the debt off with tomorrow's devalued currency. If you've got a cash flow, even better. But make sure you do have access to food, right? If you can't afford food in the future and you've got an orchard in your backyard, I see so many of you guys that follow me on Facebook and Instagram and that, and I see you posting your vegetable gardens and all that. It's freaking awesome, right? Because you're doing things to control your life and taking the need of the system. Going back 200 years ago, going back 100 years ago, it wasn't, oh, we'll just go down to the supermarket and get some food, right? I think 2020 showed you all that you couldn't get your toilet paper, you couldn't get all your necessities, right? What happens if your tap stops running water one day? What happens if the power doesn't turn on and they ration your power, right? They say, well, you've been a bad boy or girl and you don't deserve the power. We're only going to give you X amount of power to your house via your smart meter, via your smart house, and you don't even have to charge your electric vehicle out the front, right? They're things that could happen. You need control of it, right? And these are the things. Unfortunately, these folks that are homeless don't have the basic necessity. The basic necessity is a house, a roof over your head. You don't need to own it. You just need to be able to afford to rent it. You need water to come out of the tap so you can be clean and, be sheltered from the environment. So, yeah, just things to be mindful of. Here's getting back to my other conversation beforehand with Coles in Brisbane, right? Our currency is dead. We technically should have bank runs going on right now, but people aren't, they're not fighting about it. They don't see the importance of it. They're too asleep to it. But if there was a bank run, everyone would be asking for their money. The banks would go bankrupt. But slowly, they've taken away all the ATMs, they've taken all the ways for you to communicate with that system, and everyone's trapped within the system. So if your money is always in the bank, you can never get it out, it's never yours, it's always out of the system, you are now just playing in a controlled system, right? So the cashless society is here, it's getting a lot worse. You've got a couple of years to try and set yourself up on that front, not being negative or whatever. You don't want to be at the mercy of the system because that's what happened the last few years. Here's an article here saying we can't stop at the sad reality of Australia's soon-to-be cashless society. An expert, who's the expert? Let's go and read through it. Has predicted Australia will ditch the banknotes and lose change in the next 3 to 5 years, and she's shared a bleak warning. Says the Australian could be years away from cashless societies. Sarah Wells, a finance and money commentator, has predicted Australia would ditch banknotes and lose change in the next 3 to 5 years. The country's move towards a fully cashless society essentially inevitable. We're very close to a cashless society. We can't stop it, she told news.com.au. Our phones and watches are becoming our first choice for purchases now. There aren't as many ATMs around anymore. The ATMs have gone because we don't want to spread any illness for you, right? We don't want to be doing this. We don't want to be doing that. Who believes this shit? Anyway, branches are closing down and some retail shops can't break money. The move away from physical currency has been a long time coming, with cash accounting for just 13% of all payments in 2022 compared to 27% in 2019. Blah, 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 blah. We've read these ones before. That's a new one, but we've read very similar. This here is pretty sad, right? This is just going to show the haves and the have-nots, right? When there's a change in wealth, and it's happened throughout history, go and research. That's a very good question. I'm going to come back and answer that question about buying a renovated home now is better than buying a renovated home tomorrow. It's a good question. This is pretty sad, right? When the crash of any economy or any civilization, right? Things happen before the civilization falls, right? It doesn't matter whether it's in, ancient Rome or ancient Athens or the Roman Empire, or I've just seen a picture of that red-headed lizard guy, Lizzie's son, grandson, Harry or whatever his name is, right? Talking about falling of societies, right? Literally, kingdoms collapse when the currencies fail, right? And there's a new currency system in place, and it's a new control of power, and it's like nothing we've ever really seen beforehand. This here is the bad side of it, right? I'm here always talking about the exciting side of it, right? We're going to make lots of money, we're going to be very wealthy, we're going to have all the shit we can, but this is if you don't get it right. Young Aussies are forced to give up medicine and fresh food as the cost of living bites hard, right? I didn't know anything about inflation. I didn't know anything about hyperinflation. I didn't understand the concepts going back 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I first started looking at investing in a property. I just wanted to own property and be rich, right? But I didn't realize the things. And what I did realize at a very young age is that I saw so many people that were 50 or 60 or 70 or 40 that weren't happy with their life, having to work 2 jobs, that were, very, I was just in the system, I was going to head there very easy in life. And I made the conscious decision back when I was 18 or 17 to work 2 full-time jobs for 10 years. Right? I worked 2 full-time jobs for 7 years, and at the age of 24, I quit my job in the middle of the GFC because I'd replaced my income. And I realized that I had the choice at that time to work 2 jobs, right? But when I'm 30, 40, 50, kids, all that sort of stuff would come into play. And it's like, you wouldn't want to be forced to having to work for that. So looking at it, the choice people have to have, I'm assuming when we go down to the supermarket, and I say assume because I don't feel that way, but I would see people there, and I know, I've said it before, and I know what people get paid out there in the world. And you see people around you, and it's like, do you buy that they've got to print money, stimulate the economy, and give people incentives to be able to, improve. But people having to make the hard choice between whether they eat or they medicate their sick relative or their sick self, whatever the case may be. The only way through this is either all these people die, or they'll step in and create a new program where they'll create more debt and try and resolve the issue. So people are going to have the issue with making up those decisions on what they've got to do. And I made the decision years ago. I sacrificed my youth. I did whatever I had to do to work hard and invest my cash into being able to they're the decisions that we have to make. So you want to have your shit in order for this time that we're going through, because it could be a tremendous time in your life. I know thousands of investors that I help out, and these guys have got cash flow going up, the rent's increasing, and things are going really good for them. Interest rates have gone up for the last 12 months, but they ain't going to stay there. The rents go up, and they don't just come back in 6 months' time, right? They go up and they stay up. When when the interest rates go up now, they come down. That's temporary. That's transitory, as all our lovely friends at the central banks around the world would say. That's transitory. But the fact that if we look at inflation, this is a factual thing, right? If your favorite item, right, was $50 and inflation was 3%, inflation on $50 at 3% would be $1.50. So your $50 would turn to $51.50, right? And then next year, if it was 3% as well, it would go up to maybe $53.20. Let's hypothetically call it that. So it would go up gradually. But with inflation at a point now where the $50 has turned into $100, right, 3% would be $100 to $103. But it's not just like that, right? Because we're at now 7% inflation, right? And if it's kept at 7 or 6, and they're going to go, it's fantastic, right? 7% inflation on $100 is now $7, right? So your favorite item that went from $50 to $100, and they've got it all under control, and it's only gone up $7 this year, it goes from $100 to $107. And then next year it goes up another 7%, so it goes from $107 to say $115, right? That means in 2 years, right, it's got up 50% of what it was a couple of years ago. Your inflation is a compounding effect. I need you all to understand that, right? It doesn't change my life because I understand how it works, but it's how can you use that to your advantage? And that is what I'm talking about with a once in a generation shift in monetary, shift in wealth. So on that note, that's all the news that I had to talk about. What have I seen? What were probably the biggest highlights of my last 5 weeks on the road, or 6 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it's been on the road? I've seen some lovely places. I've driven about 7,000 kilometres, had conversations with a lot of people that I've never met beforehand, which are inside of my businesses and whatnot. I've seen about 20 pubs and motels that I hadn't seen beforehand. I realised that I've got a burger joint called Birchie's Burgers. Birchie's Burgers, didn't even know there was such a thing, but there's a burger shop called Birchie's Burgers. It's in a part of a pub in a regional town, which is pretty cool. I think the cool part about that is being diverse, right? Having a diverse position. And that's what I've always set out to be. That's why I called the business. What's this here? Yes, Lisa, I got to see you guys up in far north Queensland. It was lovely to catch up with you guys. With it, I've got a mind blank. There's another plane. Being diverse, very important, right? And I'm not talking diverse like most of the companies that are out there today on the stock market. I'm talking about being diverse by spreading your risk, having multiple different things, right? Do I think that property is the best thing out? I think it is, right? I think there's other things that are greater than that, but they're not a great investment, right? I think food is much greater than property, because food you can eat. If you don't have food, you're going to die, right? But it's having all of those things. It's having access to everything. It's being in abundance of those things. That's what a wealthy sort of lifestyle is. It's having abundance of those things. So being diverse across the field is important. Cars are everywhere. People are traveling. Regional towns are on fire. I've got a couple of little notes here. The fact that I couldn't get accommodation in locations, right? I had to drive 6 hours. It was really about 8 hours. I was only able to get a place 4 hours from somewhere that, and this is a massive place, right? This is a massive, I can't even explain how big this town is, right? It's massive. It'd be like not being able to get a room in Sydney type thing, right? And I was like, this is fucked, right? Why is there so many people out there traveling around? It's just the world that we live in, right? I've realised one thing. The other day I spent about 10 hours, let's say 10 hours for the fun of it, right? 10 hours just seeking out just doing some searches. I've got about 20 different searches on my phone that I look at on property websites every day. I see all the new stuff, I see all the stuff that's updated, just to keep tabs on things. That's without doing my big deep dives in, right? And I might spend an hour and a half on a good day and maybe 10, 15 hours on a every couple of weeks, jumping into the markets and seeing everything that's selling. I want to know every bit of data that's out there and put it in the back of my mind. And I did that the other day, and I realized that in the last 2 months, a lot of places, right, have gone up by another 50 grand, right? And I'm not talking places that are $1 million and going to $1.05 million, right? Because that's only 5% who wants to be a part of that. I'm talking about places that are 200 grand that are now 250, right? I'm talking places that are 150 grand that are now 220, those sort of things that have jumped up. And that is very interesting, right? Because one, all of you guys that are watching this video, that I help out on a daily basis, that I build your portfolio for, we should be looking at your positions to see what equity that we can pull out, because you've all got new equity that you didn't realize that you had, right? And if the bank doesn't see it today, they're going to see it in 3 or 6 months' time, right? So if you've got 10 properties and they've all gone up by 50K in an interest rate increasing environment, bad time, recession, whatever you want to call it, people going homeless, people going broke, businesses going bust, whatever, that's $500,000. And I think that 50% of my clients have had those sort of gains over the course of the last couple of months. I think there's people walking through. I don't know who's behind me here. Let's hope it's not a stalker. I can hear some noises out there. Yeah, so interesting to see that. I had one of my mates, I was making these videos, so you guys should have, over the course of the next couple of months, videos coming through on social media every week of deals that I've done. So I put up on a weekly basis the hot deals, right? I put up the hot deals, and I just put up, like, you know, these are the deals we got this weekend, or whatever the case might be, just a few deals there, and you guys can see what we're buying. And I actually thought I'd take another step, and I made 1 minute to 5 minute videos, right? 1 minute to 5 minute videos. The average is about probably 2 minutes or whatever. And these videos were me out the front of some of your properties, right? And I've gone through, like, there's lots of properties, who knows what ones I'm showing, right? I went through towns that I was going through, made about 100 of these videos, and I sent them to my team, and Carolyn from the marketing team has it. She's going to do whatever she needs to do and put them up on social media. So you start seeing those things come through. And I sent a few of them to a couple of my mates. And one of my mates said to me, he's in a property, he's actually a client of ours, and got him like a dozen properties or so. And he said something very important. I didn't even realize it, right? He goes, out of the last 10 videos you just sent me this afternoon, right? All the properties that you sent me have gone up about 50% in the last year, right? I didn't even know. I was just in the front going, oh, you bought this thing for 170 grand, it's worth 250, whatever the case may be, right? But it's had a 50% growth. And he said about that, and it made me realize, like, shit, like, people think that you have to, someone just said, bring back the vault. This is vault in real world, just out inside the road, like 1 minute videos. I'm not in front of the video, I'm just filming it going, hey, look, this guy, this is mad, right? Back in the day, I'd be on the front of the camera, having to get my head in there. No, this is the deal. This is what we're getting. This is what we're doing. They're real results in the real market that's happening right now. And he said to me, like, these deals, he goes, I go on the internet, I get flooded with all these, you know, property experts and everyone trying to sell on a property, right? Firstly, he said that no one has deals that are like 100 grand or 200 grand or 300 grand, which I don't see many people doing that. But anyway, that's what I've been able to buy for our investors, which is really cool, and I made lots of money out of that. But he goes, the growth, right? And it made me think about, like, the mindset about having a cheap property, having good cash flow, and he goes, oh, you can't have growth, right? Well, the growth has been better than most things that are out there, right? Like going up 50% in a year, this is just an isolated thing. It was like he made the observation, and then when he said it, I went, oh, true, yeah, it's probably like that. But anyway, I didn't see it as anything because it's just something I do every day of the week. But it's just interesting to see that, you know, the properties we're buying, they're very recession proof, and, you know, the rents are blowing up through the roof. I was talking to one of you guys today about one of your rentals, and it's like 310, and you're pissed off that when we bought it, it was rented until, you know, early next year. So you've only got like another 3 months or 4 months of it being low, but it was rented for like 320 for like a 200 grand purchase. Most people were like, oh, well, you can't get that. It was like, no, we can get like 410, 420 for it, right? So rising rents, rising prices is a fantastic, you know, ability in the portfolio. Rental crisis, massive, as I said. Real estate offices have stacks of rental applications with zero rental properties around out there. I need to have some of my organic ginger beer. There's a massive shortage of stock to buy. There is no stock out there at the moment, and there's no stock. So I think we're going to see another increase of another 50 grand in the next 3 months, 6 months, and that isn't even with rate cuts. So imagine when interest rates drop, what will actually happen to the markets out there when interest rates do drop? Because it's just, if this is what's happening when rates are rising, what's going to happen when rates actually fall? Because then everyone can afford it. It's like, you know, buying a property for 200 grand with a $400 a week, it's a 10% yield. When interest rates drop, nothing will be paying yields. So, you know, people will be looking for yields, and, you know, pushing a 10% down to a 5%, even a 5% yield people wanting to get, and that will push the price of the asset up by double. So it's just some things to play in mind. The biggest thing that I realised, I'll wait for this inconsiderate plane to go overhead. Imagine living under a thing. I thought this was a tremendous location. I thought it was a really beautiful spot. And then I hear this and I'm like, don't want to buy a holiday house here now. I'll keep my holiday house where it is. I was out in some towns, right? And I made a really random comment. Probably one of the most random comments I've ever made on something. And I was like, here's a house. It's 150 grand, rents for $300, $320 a week. Previous sales were like 400,000, 500,000 10 years ago, right? There's nothing under 200 grand. It was literally me making a video like that. And then I said something, and I was like, if you wanted to, I was like about an hour and a half from the beach, right? I was inland. And I was like, if you didn't like where this house was, you could buy this house for 150K, right? Lift the fucker up and put it on a truck, right? And carry the house away and dump it on a block of land near the beach, right? You're buying it so fucking cheap. And then I was sitting there thinking, maybe I should go and have a chat to this company, right? Now, I've spoken to them beforehand. It's a company called Queensland House Removers, QHR. They're on the freeway on the M1 as you're going through like around Caboolture area. And I went onto their website, and you can go on their website and have a look now, right? Old fibro houses. Do you remember when you drive down the road and you'd see a house getting knocked? So when people move a house, where does that happen from? So what happens is that when you move a house, let's say you want to knock your house over, it costs to knock it down. You've got all the labor, the machinery, tipping fees, all that sort of stuff is like, 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, whatever, to knock a house over. So if you're knocking the house over, you're going to have to pay someone to take it down. But these house moving companies will come in and you might pay them 10 grand and they'll just lift your house up on the truck and take it away, and then they'll sell it to someone else, right? So it's kind of like, take my garbage away, right? And, it was a cheap thing. People give away free houses. How many times have you seen a free house beforehand, right? And then all you got to do is to pay to remove it, right? So really the person that's going to knock the house down saves themselves having to spend 30 or 40 grand. And then the person taking the house away gets it for free, but they have to pay 30 grand for moving it or whatever, right? I looked, and the cost to move a house now, right? 150 grand for a little 5-row house that you need to renovate still. 200 grand for a little house, right? So if you're buying anything, right? Anything around the country for sub 200 in 2023, you could literally just fucking move that thing, put it on the back of a truck and get the fuck out of there. And you got the land for free, right? You can't even get a removable house, like an old fibre house, and move it somewhere for under $150,000, $200,000 now out there. So it just, a penny dropped. I drove past and I was like, it was just yesterday, I think it was. I drove past the Queensland House Remover place, and I was like, I'm going to Google and see what properties they got. Maybe they'll have 10 of them there for like 50 grand or 100 grand. I'll ship them out somewhere. Actually, one of the things I thought about was I can't buy motels for the prices that I was. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try and build motels for, put more units on the blocks that I've got. And then I was thinking, maybe I could just do some move my house. I try to look at the value and toy around with ideas and strategies until I get something right and I go all in on something. And I'll probably build maybe 100 of these little units that I'm going to build, like just like a double brick, like a Besser block motel rooms. I've got a good person that can construct them. I've got a builder's license that I can utilise for myself and be able to knock them out of the ground. But I was toying with the idea, and I was like, fuck, I can't believe how expensive it has become. And when I say that company, they are very cheap, right? They are fantastic cheap for what they sell. And just a turnkey solution for that, right? I'm not even going to the expensive ones, right? That was just cheap. I'm like, if you're buying a property for $200,000 or $150,000 today, that is terrific value. Take it, right? Depending on where it is, what it is, of course, and what condition it's in. But you just can't get them for that. see, that was just a couple of the observations. Now, I had someone write in the comments just a little while ago about if it's better to buy a property that's renovated today or if it's unrenovated. For me personally, I've got like over a dozen renos going on at the moment, just properties that need work done to them, and I'm going through and I'm giving them paint, I'm giving them bathrooms, I'm giving them kitchens, right, and flooring. So in all my properties, I'm doing tiles straight through because I've got a very good tile layer. The tiles are very good value for what I can pick them up for. I'm using floorboard tiles throughout, and I'm giving them really nice pattern, Palm Beach style bathrooms, or depending on where the location is and what sort of bathroom I'm putting into it. But the one thing I've realised is that wages have gone up, cost of goods have gone up, and everything's rising, right? But not everyone has caught up with inflation. So if I can get the tiling done at the same price as what I could 2 years or 3 years ago, that is very good, right? I'm doing bathrooms for like $3,000, strip out and redo a bathroom, right? So turnkey, in and out. But I'm doing, as I said before, I did 100 bathrooms last year, and I've got about 200 more bathrooms that I'm going to do over the next 12 to 24 months. So I'm doing them on scale, right? And it's not like, oh, hey, here's some trades you can go use, right? I've had to project manage these things myself. I have to order my own. I get the call and they're like, shit, I need some sand and cement. You need to drop 10 ton of sand here, 50 bags of cement, whatever. I've got to call up and order that shit. So I do that, but I'm being active in the reno, but I'm doing it on scale. And the reason why I'm renovating so much is because I realize I can get an extra, if I spend 10K, I've added on that property more than 10K value. I'm adding 50K of value from spending 10K. I'm getting $100 a week extra rent, so I'm getting a 50% return on my investment. Where else can I get 50% return on investment? Plus, inflation is going to fuck up my game in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years' time, and I'm not going to get the tiles cheap enough. I'm not going to get the building materials cheap enough. I'm not going to be able to get the labour cheap enough. So when I look at it, what does the bathroom need? It needs like $1,000 in tiles. It needs a house would need like, say, $2,000 worth of tiles through it. So there's a few grand in materials. The paint might be $500, $1,000 worth of paint, depending on the property. So it's not that much in materials, but that will add up and double and triple over the years to come. And just with everything increasing. And the labour, I ain't going to be able to get it as cheap ever again. So I'm choosing to increase my cash flow via those methods. So it's important to use inflation to your benefit. And I could have renovated all my properties 10 years ago, right? But instead of renovating my properties 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, I was out there buying more assets while they were cheap. And now I'm renovating the assets because they're cheap and just because I feel it's the right thing to do to improve my cash flow to take through the next cycle. And this next cycle is going to be so fucking awesome, right? Just my thoughts, what I'm seeing out there, and my thoughts that I'd share with you guys. So on that note, if you guys have any questions, flick them through. I'll try and read through some of your questions here and answer them. And one thing as well, just before any of you guys start going, something very important is coming up in the next couple of weeks. There is a link in the comment section. It's not the one in the description. If you want to speak to my team, click the link in the description. But there is a link, right? And this is very crucial, right? It's a very small window of opportunity for something, right? It is free, right? People always ask me, Birchie, do a course, do a seminar, right? Do a seminar, do a course. The thing is that I don't have time to do seminars. I've got too many things going on. It's not my cup of tea. There's lots of people selling, spruiking, putting out courses and selling them and stuff like that. I did a mentoring program going back like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, before the crisis that we're in now in the world. And I spoke about it all before it happened. And that was the last speaking event I did. So I haven't done a seminar for 5 years. I have a seminar which is free. I'm not doing the seminar because I'm like, oh, this is all $1,000 tickets, $2,000 tickets, and raffling them off, right? If you want to go see a seminar, where can you get a seminar with someone that's got hundreds of properties, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wealth, self-made in Australia, right? It's just not going to find it. So there is a link there in the bottom of the comment section where you can get access to a free in-person seminar. There's food and stuff there. If you're a vegan, you can put in there you're a vegan and we'll cater to that. If you're a meat-loving person or got gluten options, there's all different comments in there. There's food provided. So you're coming along watching me talk about how you can build a 100+ property portfolio, how you can build wealth, how you can build an income stream that's going to be multi-generational, right? Shit that I did 20 years ago that you can replicate in 2023 in your own position, whether you're starting out or you're, building a portfolio. It's there. I encourage you to share it for people to, for the whole community. If you're an investor of ours, join up. If you're not, it's open to the community. So it's just one-off. I don't have any plans to do it again. When I say I'm not like John Farnham that comes out and does a tour and goes, it's my last song, right? And I'm going to do another one next week and next month and next month and next month. I do these things with closed, intimate groups of like 100, 200, 300 of my investors normally, right? Last Christmas party I had it was like a big wedding, right? It was tremendous, right? But I looked in the room, I was like, there's $1 billion in this room, $1 billion of wealth that, I've been a part of helping you guys with, right? So it's rare that you go to these places. It's a safe space. This is open to you guys to see, a bit of feel of what we do, and I'll be presenting just how to replicate what I've done. It's worked for the last 20 years. It should work for the next 20 years. It's a very simple strategy, but I will be doing a presentation. I'll have other experts as well that will be there on the day. It's in about 2 weeks, and so I don't have all the details, and I haven't looked at it. I know it's coming up, and I need to talk there. It's around the corner from where I am. It's in the Hills District in Sydney. It's free, so don't even need to be a tight ass. Just click on the link, enter your details if you want to come along. If you're going to be wasting time, let's not waste each other's time as well, because all of our time is valuable. But if you do want to catch up, register now for the in-person live event in Sydney. It is free, right? I'm not trying to sell a free thing, but I'm just saying, right? I'm not trying to sell you shit either. So join up to it. If you follow what I do, if you're one of my clients and you have friends and family that, you've tried to explain it to and they don't understand it, and you do think that, they could benefit by coming along, do share the link around with them. Very happy for that. Share the link around. Join up, come along, whatever. If I see you there, I'll see you there. I'll be there in person. You won't be seeing me through a video camera. I only do presentations via video cameras, but this one's in live. So, I think some of you guys might want to come along and see it. So, the link is there. What else have we got? What else? 100% got to have a plan. Correct. Can't really see. I've got this much screen that I can see the comments through, right? Andrea said the Christmas event was incredible. So inspiring to see what your clients are achieving. Thank you, Andrea. Lisa said here, Nathan puts on a great show. Everyone should go. You always learn so much. Thank you, Lisa. I actually do have some special guests that will be coming along as well. Like I've got someone that's really cool as a information, a lot of like data information. So you've seen me put out some really cool podcasts with some guests. I've got one of them coming along to this event. And for those of you that are a part of my buyer's agency that I help locate and negotiate deals for and build the portfolios, at our Christmas party this year, right, just remember, right, make sure you're there. I've got a very, very special guest that's going to be there, right? Very special guest. So you're going to be like, fuck, how did you get this guy to your Christmas party? So make sure you come along with that as well. But Brett asked, will it be recorded for those interstate? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It'll probably get recorded. But, if someone was holding an event, right, just thinking about this, if you're interstate, I know there's people here that are in New Zealand that will fly over. They'll go, fuck it, I'm coming to see Birchie, right? If someone went out there and put a seminar and a course out and goes, we're come to this place, we're going to charge $2,000, $5,000 a ticket. People are like, yeah, fuck it, I'll pay $5,000 to go see Birchie, right? I'm not charging anything for it, right? So if you're living in the state, don't be tired. I'm not saying you're tired, but just hop on a fucking plane. It costs like $100, $200, whatever. Come along, be there in person, But if it's recorded, you can get it recorded as well. I'm sure it'll be recorded. I haven't organised it, right? It's my team that organised it. But if you're interstate, just come over, right? Come say hi to Sydney, right? Might be fun. So, yeah. Awesome. On that note, guys, I I've got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got renos to go and see in Sydney. I've got to drive back to Sydney. I've got about an 8-hour drive in front of me. I'm going to leave it at this. Thanks a lot for tuning in and having me as a part of your evening or of your day if you're listening to this at another time or whatever. We'll catch up soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep being awesome. Remember, opportunities are out there. There's windows of time which things occur. Once they've gone, they've gone. I always see these reels with people with kids on Instagram, and they say you got 4 years with a kid, right? Once the 4 years is over, it's gone, right? There's windows that come and go in life, and we're in a time now with this opportunity, right? We've still got cheap credit. We're at a point where we're about to see explosive inflation, which means the debt becomes irrelevant. Everything that you hold will go up. Your cash flow will get increased. Make sure you take advantage and you're a part of the party. Catch up soon. Bye for now. If you need help, know where to find us. Bye for now.